Number,
You are now online.
Whatever's on there, we're gonna be live streamed, all that. Sorry, I didn't.
welcome to the December 9th MSAD11 curriculum meeting. We are live streamed, and I'd like the curriculum committee board members to introduce themselves.
Megan Carlson.
Linda Caputo. And we have an additional board member here
Joanne O'Brien.
and administrators.
Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum.
Fire Director of Technology.
Thank you.
Oh, great. We good? Okay, so today's meeting is just helping us understand readiness for school. And I'll be curious about what you're curious about and trying to lay the foundation for making sure, we often talk about end of fifth grade, end of eighth grade, end of high school. Graduation requirements, we talk about a lot in here. And so I'm trying to flip it and have us go back to the beginning of school, pre-K and kindergarten, and readiness and what we do, what the expectations are, how might we improve family engagement to support students' readiness skills, sort of the framework for it. And so agenda item 2, school readiness for pre-K and kindergarten. What do we look for? What are our results? And then item number 3, pre-K expectations, sort of blend together, but I'll try to do them one after the other, just because sequentially it makes sense in the agenda. So you have a packet today, and I guess first I'd like to ask, what do you think we look for when kids are getting ready to come to pre-K or kindergarten? What do you think? They come in the spring and enroll their children for enroll for screening. They come to us, usually the school, one of the schools or different schools, and we meet the family, whoever comes with them, we meet the student goes off with an adult, goes through different series of stations, and then they earn a little pencil and stickers, and we say, yay, you're getting ready to come to school. Sometimes there's a little quiet parent conversation, and then off they go, and then in the summer they get a little note about how that all went, and then enrollment paperwork comes eventually, and they start the enrollment process. What do you think we're looking for? Yeah.
I would say one, are they toilet trained?
No,
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good point.
is that really asked?
It is something we look for.
Oh
Not
my
all
gosh.
children right now are coming into a.
Oh my gosh.
Do they acknowledge or seem to comprehend what's being asked of them?
Mhm.
And then I would think, where are they developmentally in terms of ABCs, 1, 2, 3, just basic shapes? What have you been exposed to? And I would think that those would probably be some of the bigger markers. There may be others.
Yeah, good start. What else? Megan, you did this, but it was a little while ago.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say what they already know. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure what else.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Anything else?
I think one thing they have children do is draw a person to see if there's arms and legs and how many body parts, but I'm not real sure why. I guess the more detailed it is, it tells you about the child. So that's one thing I always kind of wondered exactly what they were looking at, just how detailed it was. And I think they're probably looking for, can that child sit in a chair and respond verbally? And what are the social skills or skills that they may possess that would help them in a group situation?
Yep.
I don't know how you measure that, but
Well, so I'm gonna I'm not gonna share the whole thing, but we have this thing called the Dial 4. And this is the manual for it. And then which we don't obviously share with the children or the parents, because this is just like, what do the scores mean? How do you do it? This is the how to do it and how to interpret results. Then we have this form. I've forgotten how to do this. We have this form and every child has a packet. Sometimes we make it simpler for the screeners. And, but the technical dial 4 has this packet and this is one for every child. The child doesn't really see it. It's the adult that's monitoring each station that's looking at this. And, we're looking for motor skills, fine and gross. So can they hold a utensil, a pen, pencil, crayon? Can they cut with scissors? Can they move blocks? Like, can they grasp them? Can they move them? That kind of things, right? Concepts, a lot of what you talked about. Language, and then self-help. Can they do some things independently, including, are they toilet trained? Social skills, listening for directions, interacting with other people, that kind of thing. So this is like the cover page, and then we go through this process and it's like, there's a little motor station. So they throw, they stand, hop, skip, build things, show us their thumb and fingers, cut things, copy something on a page so we can see them right? So you kind of get the motor area. And just like you said, body parts, colors, objects, counting, shapes, and there's specifics around that. The other thing we're looking for while they're doing that is like, can they be away from their adult while they do it? Right, that separation. It doesn't mean that they can't come to school if they can't, but it's harder. Are they, when they have to do something that's new or maybe not routine, are they, how do they present themselves? Are they trying to persevere? Are they saying no? Are they crying? Are they asking for more information or help? Like, what is it how are they engaging? Do they want to participate? Can they wait for directions? Can they understand directions? Those are, and again, it's just information. And then can they say sounds and letters? Can they articulate, say them? They don't have to really read them right there. And then we show them objects. Can they name objects? Do they know some letters and sounds? Can they rhyme? I spy with my little eye, a little game like that. Can they problem solve? Like, what happens when we show them a picture? What would you do? And then all of that kind of gets put, there's scores that get done after. And it kind of gets in here and it lets us know if the students sort of developmentally where their age is, or if there might be missing some skills significantly, just some, or if they might actually be ahead, right?
So then you may have kids that have very mixed results.
Right,
That they're way ahead in some things and way behind in other things.
exactly. Sort of depends on what's going on in that family and their dynamics. And it helps us then look at the profile of all the students coming in and saying, like, what do we need to be ready for this group of students? Some families will sometimes say, they're on the young end. It might benefit them to have another year at home or another year at daycare and build these skills up. As a conversation, like just to converse around that idea. Also what it can do is give us some idea of like, is there something in here where they might need some specialized services coming into school in order to be doing well? And so it's an opportunity for the Office of Special Services to see some screening and in order to equip the family with supports that they might need that we might not have known through CDS in like 3-year-old programming.
Are parents, based on that screening, are parents ever given a list this summer, if you have time, you might want to work on?
So my understanding is that there's a little note that goes home in the summer that gives them some strengths and things to look at. And that there might be some conversation nearing the end of the screening, depending on how that went for the child, where that could happen. I've been thinking that maybe there's an opportunity to do a little more work there. And you know that at the board meeting, Katie mentioned at some point, by 2027, we need to start screening 3 and 4-year-olds in lieu of CDS only doing that, right? Child Development Services. Now it's going to be part of the school.
All 3 and 4-year-olds?
We're in 25, 26, 27. Yeah, at the end of 27.
All 3, not just ones there are
28.
concerns about.
Well, we have to know where this concern.
Right, but it's not because a parent came to us.
Right, we have a child find responsibility.
Okay,
So we have to seek out children that might need support.
not those that come to you.
Not just wait for them to come to us, exactly. So there is a potential process by which has not been decided, as Katie said, but there is an opportunity for us to start next school year with 4-year-olds. So some of those we see through our pre-K program already, but some don't come to our pre-K program. They might be in a childcare setting in our communities. They might be at home. And it would be our responsibility to sort of understand what their skill sets are and try to provide support and services for students who need that in order to be moving along in their developmental stages and ready for school. With financial support from the Department of Education to do that. And then the next year, take on the 3-year-olds so that we would get some experience first, kind of have a scaffolded process, 4-year-olds first, and then 3-year-olds the next year, rather than do the next year where we have to take on all 3 and 4-year-olds no matter what. So that's sort of sparked our thinking around looking backwards, right? So if we want students in kindergarten to be here and we have some pre-K ourselves, what are we doing? How are we communicating it? How are we collecting the data? How does that help us manage the shape of the classrooms, who's in which group, to make it more balanced so that the adults can support all the learners in the space? And then how will we consider what 4-year-olds look like through this child find process, so on and so forth, right? And then how can that help us improve in our kindergarten situation right now? Like, 'cause some kids come to us to kindergarten without any prior pre-K or any experience. So, and we're finding in the last few years, it's a real mix. Lots of students ready for kindergarten. Some students with help are ready for kindergarten, and some students are struggling with the social environment, like being in a school setting with structure and routine and lots of children, and how do we build relationships with families early on so we can help that transition more effectively.
Do we differentiate, say you have kids, a number of kids that need more quiet, more structure, maybe a smaller class environment, and then you have on the other side kids that are very active, very social. Do we differentiate so that we have a mix where it's mostly with a teacher that responds very well to that kind of more introverted child, maybe, and another teacher who deals very well with extroverted children who don't mind noise or something like that?
No, we have 60 students that we meet one time before they come to pre-K in this one screening of that one. So we don't know enough about to know. We looked at this information to try to figure out how, and if they're at the Boys and Girls Club, they have to be in the afternoon pre-K. If they're at Pittston or HT, they need to be in the morning pre-K because of transportation. So no, we're not able to do that with the 2 teachers we have in the 4 sections of pre-K that we
And I
have.
think somebody might say that looks like tracking.
Yeah. We have to have a mixed group. We try to have mixed groups.
I'm not saying not to have some mix and not to have some extroverted activities and stuff like that, but I've been in situations where we have mainstream kids into the general classroom, and you have kids that are very much on the spectrum in with kids that are ADHD, and it's like kryptonite in terms of trying to get things done.
Yeah, it's kind of like our world in general, like all people have to learn to work together.
I think
That's,
the philosophy is teachers need to meet the needs of all their students, realistic or not. That is the expectation.
yeah. And we do try, I mean, with pre-K, there's 2 adults and 16 children. In kindergarten, there's 1 adult, sometimes an aide is available to support, sometimes. And we try not to have those classes above 16. We try to have them smaller than that, but, so there is a little bit of a shift between pre-K and kindergarten in terms of adult to student ratio too, which helps to have more adults, with the youngest learners. So just kind of setting the stage. So you're right, these are the things we look for. Here's a tool we use to understand that better. And one of the things we think might be helpful is as we're possibly considering this exploration and eventually have to consider this exploration, right, of 3 and 4-year-olds. How do we build these relationships with families sooner? And make sure we're all on the same page about what we're hoping for expectations, and when we can't meet those expectations, how can we support each other in helping the child get to that space so that it's easier to transition into school, right? It's hard when the expectation is here and the skill set is here. So one of the things I wanted to share with you is when pre-K, when students come into our school system in pre-K, kindergarten, and 1st grade, we use this literacy assessment called Early Bird. It's like a game-based, they use touchpad screens, so it's things some of the kids are more familiar with. It's a little bird and it's game-based. And it helps us understand a little bit about what they know. The letter name and letter sound section is just teacher asking the student one-on-one outside of the game. And then the teacher enters that data. So that is not through the game. That is teacher sitting with a student showing letter name. What's this name? What's this letter? What sound does this letter make? And then in pre-K, they play a game that has to do with rhyming, vocabulary, which is recognizing vocabulary, an oral sentence. Like when you hear a sentence, are you understanding what it's asking you to do? And it's usually things like, kind of like following directions, like click the big heart, then click the yellow star.
Is this a typical? This is the score for several children, correct?
Yes.
And is this a typical or is this a concerning group?
We're seeing that this is actually, the first page is actually high, and the second page is a little more average, coming in lately with the pre-K. So what we're noticing is students know their name, a lot of their letter names, but they don't know their letter sounds. They don't know that this letter makes this sound. They've been taught explicitly that this, like, T makes T and D makes D and M makes M. When asked explicitly,
They're not gonna know blends, and they're not gonna know.
oh, they're not even close to blends. Blends is much later. So we have adjusted our curriculum over the last few years to really build letter sounds and letter names simultaneously in pre-K now. So this is beginning of the year. So this is right in the first few weeks of them being here. So it gives you a pretty good idea of like, wow, we definitely have a lot of work to do on letter names. So dark blue means they don't have a lot of that when asked on demand early in pre-K, right? But the white means they are at or above the expectation, and the light blue means they're sort of in the middle, right? Just below. So you can see the stark difference between letter name and letter sound, right? More dark blue, the less they know. What else do you notice?
Oral sentence comprehension.
Yeah, one classroom is really strong in that, right? And one is moderately strong.
On the second page, we have.
Yeah.
I wonder if that correlates to being read too.
And having conversations, following through with directions. And like, first we're gonna do this, now go find this. But I do think reading matters. We've heard that a lot. That especially is true for vocabulary development. Both these classes are pretty high in the receptive vocabulary for the pre-K, which is a great thing. So they're hearing, and sometimes they can visualize what that looks like. And then any other observations?
I think that what they're weak in is what is specifically taught, letter sounds. Vocabulary looks okay. And that's just sort of what happens in a family.
If they're reading and talking with each
Right.
other. Yep.
Whereas the letter sounds generally are specifically directly taught. And so it looks like what happens in a normal type rich family situation, we're doing okay at. It's the specifically being taught things that are dark blue.
Yeah. And the other, what we're noticing through some of our practices is things in self-help, so some independence is really variable. Not all, following directions multiple times, okay. And I really should have had the pre-K teachers here, but we will for another conversation. But sometimes social skills with each other and more like norms in a larger group setting is a little challenging.
I think dealing with frustration is another big thing, and that has to do with the social skills too. And getting frustrated because you don't understand, or you can't do what has been said, or you don't understand what's going on, and not asking for help, which is what you were alluding to earlier. Not, having a buddy to talk to and say, what do we do next? Or just not understanding. And I think part of that is with families being as stressed out in a lot of our population, either both parents working really hard, or food or housing instability or medical care instability, there sometimes isn't enough time to teach kids how to build that resilience, or to deal with frustration, or say you can't do it yet, but you will. It just takes time. Just kind of building it and saying, you'll be able to do it, and then point to things that they couldn't do before and can do now. And reading to kids, a lot of times they can pick up sounds with letters because they are physically close to the parent as they're reading, and they start to pick up that these scribbles actually mean something, and they can start to figure out, oh, okay, good night moon, the M sound is and especially if the parent also brings that as part of their reading. But if they don't get that, then it's really difficult to start from zero.
Yeah, and right, what are the resources that they have that they're exposed to? And is it, and back when I was a little kid, it was, if it wasn't my parents in the books, it was Sesame Street, right? And it's just the resource is different. There's more options now. And so what is it that they're selecting and doing,
And
engaging
screen
in?
time Too much screen time.
And, my job is not to judge families and where they're at, but to be thinking about, okay, so what is the trend of students coming to us and how do we adjust, how do we do two things? How do we adjust on our end with curriculum? Really introducing, our pre-K teachers are phenomenal. So like really introducing letter sounds. They did a lot with letter names. Now they do a lot with letter sounds simultaneously, which has really helped our kindergarten readiness by having that introduced together. And how, so that's one curriculum side. And the other side is how can we partner with families as we get to know them early, so that they feel that we are in partnership, right? That we can have expectations, they can have expectations, and we can meet each other in the middle and say, like, if there's opportunity for learning how to hold a crayon, right? And that's seems like it's easy, but it isn't, right?
You've never done it.
You've never done it, and you learn the habit early, it's hard to change habits, right? And so for even just manipulating objects as a little kid is so important. Taking tongs and squeezing them and picking something up and dropping it into something else, like those play bins. That's like incredibly important developmentally for little kids. And if they don't have practice doing that, some of their motor skills, it's harder for them. Or coloring with a crayon against paper rather than coloring on an iPad, touchpad iPad. It's a very different experience for your body. It's really important that kids have that chance to use like the crayon and the texture against the paper and hold that.
Supporting what you're
utensil.
saying is, and I don't mean to demean parents, but I'm not sure parents know that coloring on an iPad
Is
is
different.
different than coloring with a waxy crayon on paper. And unless they know that, they're not going to encourage.
Exactly. And I don't want it to come across like we know and they don't, that's not fair. And so how do we build a relationship? So it is a partnership. It's something like we appreciate you and how can we give you some tools and resources towards readiness in a way that's helpful, right? And like a lot of families go to like the library for story hour. That's like a great thing to do. Or
Great library.
yeah. So I mean, again, lots of great parent things. We try to think about where is it that we have some influence. It's in the classroom and it's in our ability to make relationships. And how can we strengthen that outreach in a way that's receptive to families and doesn't feel uncomfortable.
Have we done family math nights?
So we do in the schools, right? And we're actually going to do a really fun one in January too, across the district, but for elementary. But and if they have siblings, they tend to come.
I'm thinking, money, it's gonna cost money. Having like a family math night where there's little treats, cookies, inexpensive treats, and just having stations for the children to go to.
It's pretty much what they do.
That is done.
Yeah.
Not a family math nights. I'm talking about for the pre-K students.
Yeah, we've done it for the school, and pre-K is part of school. But one of the things also some of the pre-K teachers thought about last year was like, is there, how we don't always have pre-K on Fridays? Is there like once a month when they can do something on a Friday for, I think they were talking about kids that aren't yet in pre-K, or can we do some sort of family thing during that period?
Parents are likely to
Or
be working though.
like a working group. Yeah, that could be an issue. Or can they bundle up with like if the older kids are doing something, can they add a pre-K component that evening? They go and help out all the time, the pre-K teachers in those evening events. And I know that they are part of the school LER community where we have pre-K right now pretty actively. And I know that siblings are always welcome. My concern is like if they haven't yet come to school, what if
At all,
their
they're the
first
oldest
child?
child.
Yeah, their oldest child, and they're not yet enrolled. So it's trying to figure out how to
Have we
connect.
considered having these kind of nights informative, not necessarily with children, for daycare providers?
We have a pretty good relationship with our daycare providers and they actually know a lot. They have to do a lot of like continuing education in order to, I think, keep their licensing going. And during COVID, we had a lot more meetings because we were all trying to keep each other afloat. I'd be curious what they might want and we might want to ask them that.
Maybe if they just knew what you were looking for with the skills like you listed, the skills that they have, you'd like to see them have, that was scissors.
Yeah, and it's, yeah. So maybe that actually is good to move us to the early learning and development standards. So just so that you're aware, you know, like when we talk about graduation requirements, those are built off of credits and they're built off of main learning results, right? And we design our curriculum around the main learning results. And we have a dual system in this district where we're monitoring for achievement of the standards while reporting traditionally. And then you kind of work that all the way down to kindergarten. Well, they also have these main early learning and development standards. These are the newest ones. I didn't print the whole thing, but it's on, you just type main early learning standards and these will, the 123-page document will pop up. And it goes from 0 to 3, 4 to 6, 4 to 5, 4 to 5. It's 60 months, up to 60 months. And then kindergarten and up. And so you can see here on the cover page, you have an infant toddler section. So a lot of our pre-K and childcare centers know all this. And there's a lot of continuing education for those providers centered around this. So it's a continuum. What are expectations for around infant toddler development, preschool development, and then when we get to kindergarten, we shift into main learning results. And you can see how it kind of grows. So when we say social emotional development, it's things like, can you name your feelings and know what to do about them? Can you share? Can you compromise? Can you take turns? Can you wait patiently for your turn? Can you wait for directions? Right? That's what we mean. Approaches to learning and play is like curiosity, persistence, problem solving, flexibility, those sorts of things. Language and literacy, that's what you talked about earlier, right? Letter names, letter sounds, rhyming. Physical development and health, that's where we're talking about those motor skills, right? Holding, gripping, skipping, jumping, running, balance, scissor cutting. And then cognitive, that's where we're getting specifically into like what you're traditionally used to seeing for main learning results, right? Can they follow 3-step directions? Can they name shapes, colors? Do they know their name? Do they know the letters of their name? And then some math reasoning, science reasoning, and
So
like
sequential, being able to
Yeah.
understand the sequence of.
Yeah, exactly. And then those all develop to get ready for kindergarten. Does that make sense? And so there's sort of this visual, and then this is the summarized sheet, the graphic organizer that breaks it all down for you. Social, emotional, like this self-regulation, having sympathy for others, being able to adapt. Can you make a relationship with someone else? Do you know things that are the same and things that are different? And then learning and play we talked about.
Can you tell me, as we feel, when we are pre-K teachers and even kindergarten teachers deal with students that hit, spit, bite, or otherwise engage in antisocial behaviors or frustrated behaviors that disrupt
Yeah, Joanne, it's hard. I mean, it depends on, sometimes it's not hard. Sometimes it's direct teaching, right? So part of your job as a classroom teacher is to set expectations for how we treat one another in a classroom setting. And so it's, we use each other's name, we follow directions, we keep our hands and feet to ourselves. Some of the normal kind of activities, and we have to teach these, especially in these pre-K and kindergarten classrooms, you have to teach every single step. So when you want kids to sit on a rug to look at the board, to talk about the day, or whatever your lesson is, the letter F and the sound, then we actually have to teach them how to sit on the rug where you're not on top of each other, and sometimes you're sitting crisscross and your hands are in your lap and your eyes are looking at the teacher. Every one of those little moments is taught. There's never an assumption that all the kids know how to do it, because they don't. How do we push a chair in and then go to the rug without falling over each other? And that's why the first few months of school are really all about that. How do we line up? How do we find our seat with our name on it? How do we?
Move from station to station if
activities.
Right,
Exactly. When a new activity is introduced, how do we do that? So some of that is developed because there's explicit instruction in how to do these things. And even children coming in who might not know how to do it can follow directions, understand that there's kind of a reward through this, right? As I do this, then it looks like I get to do this, and that's fun and I want to do it. And it becomes a normalized behavior. Some students really struggle with that for lots of reasons. And so then we have to understand what that reason is. And every student's a little different. And that's that problem-solving cycle. What's going on here? Sometimes you can get that just through a conversation with a child. Sometimes it's looking for patterns of behavior. Oh, when we're doing math, number stuff, the child is uncomfortable. So then the behavior changes negatively. And so how do we scaffold that so that the child becomes more confident and reduces their avoidance behavior, right? That's one sort of thing to think about. Sometimes children, for lots of reasons, hit, bite, kick, spit, and if we don't have these situations in place, we do have these situations in place, including consequences, right? Natural, logical consequences. And opportunity to go back and apologize to a student and reflect upon how that made that student feel and what they're going to do differently. Sometimes those don't work either.
Do we ever just say, we don't do that
Yes,
here?
we say that all the time, Joanne, all the time. We say that all the time. But saying that is like telling someone no. And what happens sometimes for some people when you tell them no?
They have to be told again.
Yeah.
And then they have to have consequences.
And we do all of that.
Yes.
And it still sometimes doesn't work.
Yeah, but sometimes reasoning though with a 3 or 4 or even 5-year-old, they can't tell you.
That is true,
Right.
which is why teachers have a lot of tools in their toolbox. They use them all. And they get help to use them all. And there are still times when it's going to take us a while to figure out why this behavior is happening and how do we make sure all children are safe in that space. And that's what an intervention system is for. We call it multi-tiered systems of support. And we actually have a committee going on right now that's working on strengthening our interventions around student behavior. Because we need to help them with replacement behaviors. And sometimes it's not as easy as it seems, including consequences. So we balance what the law says, and we balance what's going on with the student and the students around them. And we use every resource we can. And you will sometimes see people talking that there aren't enough resources, or there's not a fast enough response, or, why can't they just solve it? And it's because we're dealing with humans. And humans are complex, and it's not always a straight line A to B. We do try to involve the parents as much as we can because they have a lot of insight about their children and can often help us figure out the way to the solution. Sometimes it takes time. And we can't, sometimes people say like, just move them to special ed. Well, one, there's a whole process for that. A lot goes into that. Two, we don't immediately restrict a student's environment by law without understanding if that's the most appropriate place for them. And we need to make sure we're not assuming children can't learn appropriate behavior. So it's a lot more complicated than that. And it is a challenge, and it's a real challenge in some cases, in some spaces, which is why we have this committee of staff and administration working together. We had a committee last year, we got pretty far. Now we're trying to go a little deeper this year. And we're trying to come up with some real clear system-wide solutions that are more efficient for staff and students, and help us get results faster than we're currently getting them, appropriately. And we hope to have some more proposals to you in the February curriculum meeting. That's our goal. So I mean, with all the students we get, and there's no exclusion of students. We don't get to just tell students they don't get to come to school. So.
No, I work in a
It's our
Title I
challenge.
school, so I definitely know that you have to deal with the students that you receive,
They're all little people, and they all have an opportunity to learn.
and they
And we
do.
just have to try to do it in a way that keeps all people safe. And we do our very best with the resources we have and the expertise we have. And we're trying to do better. So we have this going on, and you can see there's this development. So we have families working with their children, then we have engagement with families, then we have screening and data that goes back both to families and to our school system. Then we have entry to school and all these like how to be in school learning sessions. And then we try to develop their skill set so they're ready for kindergarten. Kindergarten screening, I think, only happens for students that we don't yet know, because we already have an assessment of the kids we already know, like in our pre-K program. So, and then this last document is sort of what we we've used it a couple of years, we might improve it still, but it's what we hand out at parent-teacher conferences in October. This is sort of like, this is what we're looking for by the end of kindergarten. It's one of our family engagement strategies to say, here's what we hope to see by the end of kindergarten. Here's a little bit of how we're going to get there. Here's some ways you can help out at home. And then here are the behaviors we're looking for, and more ways to help out at home, on the front and back. So one of my questions for you is like, in what other ways do you imagine we can be more effective at helping students and families be ready for school and communicating what that means? Do you have any ideas before we start building? We're going to try to improve upon this. We think it might be helpful, especially knowing we might have access to earlier learners. And one thing that was mentioned tonight is figuring out ways to strategically have some of our earliest learners, before they register even, be part of some of these nights.
Right.
that we do for our general ed population. So that's one thing, like in-person,
Yeah.
fun family sessions.
Could you, somehow, I mean, I was gonna say incentivize, but just by like, oh, it's a fun thing, you know, like what if people were sort of, cause I know we always are like, do you know a neighbor? Do you have a friend? Do you have somebody? So, you know, bring your neighbor who has a 3-year-old or whatever, you know, like trying to actively encourage people to think about the future pre-Kers that they know or something. I don't know. It's hard. That's really tricky. Trying to engage people that you don't know of.
I think maybe have, do we have a PTO or PTA? Have, you know, family story nights where, you know, you have people that will read to the kids and have activities based on a book or that kind of thing, while parents can either observe or be part of it, or be at a meeting learning explicitly about what's being done so that they have some understanding of, you know, oh, today we're going to be drawing the character in a book, and as we're reading it, and what do you think that person looks like? And we're doing this on paper with crayons because tablets don't give the same feeling, and doesn't enhance the story as much as actually drawing a picture, using your mind's eye. So, you know, just to have that kind of family night, and then another one could be based on math, or another one could be based on doing an experiment, and why do we do experiments? And, you know, just kind of fun things on a monthly basis, that we invite the community to, especially the parents of 3 and 4.
I think one thing that we tend to forget is we are all old parents. None of us have little tiny people. I just look at this and I'm going, I want a little person to play with. I want a little person, not of my own. But until people understand the importance of doing something, they're not going to do it. And I think there are parents who don't see the importance of this because they figure it'll just happen. It will just happen when they go to school. And while it will happen when they go to school, it might put their child somewhat behind. And so I think somehow we need to convince parents of the importance. And how we do that, I don't have a suggestion. But before you can get people to do something, they need to understand that it needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
And
And
that's
it can be done through play. That's like
Yes,
really important. Like
yes.
it doesn't have to be not fun. It can just
absolutely,
be
it should be
playful.
fun.
Yeah.
But I think that we're educators, so we just automatically see this and think this way. Whereas not all parents think that way.
So I kind of wondered, and I don't want us to go too long because I know it's almost time to be done, but I do wonder about, are there light lift strategies that we might figure out how to do that is where families already are? So what we have here is a lot of them coming to us. Is there, like, where are families and what might they end up seeing when they're there that could be different? That they might see value and importance? Like, where do families go? Some go to the library, and I think they already do a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
Where else do you go?
Okay, I haven't thought this out, but could there be something, a situation that they see on a video that they're then, parents could go to the video and some scripted somehow, and then the parents try that on their own with their own child? That's pretty vague, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, so like little
Snippets of
snippets of
fun
video that might show up in their
activities.
feed somehow that they might
Right.
access. They might choose to access because it's in front of
Well,
them.
you know, for example, think of those 1 centimeter cubes or the 1-inch cubes that are red, green, blue, and yellow. And you could set up a little snippet, 5 minutes, saying, okay, Megan, let's practice. Here's your cubes, red, blue, red. Megan, what's the next one gonna be? And some parents would never have thought of the patterning. And so just keep them really short and doable for a parent. And even if they don't have cubes, they can cut out circles or M&Ms, or, I mean, that's shouldn't be a deal breaker that they don't have 4 color
Something
cubes.
with colors.
Right, or shapes or whatever, and just little tiny snippets that might encourage them to do some of the things that we see as skills that would be helpful. Because then they could do it on their own time.
There's a lot, it's like Miss Rachel, and that there are a lot of YouTube videos that do this kind of thing, you know, where you have a kindergarten teacher or a preschool teacher doing activities just like this with kids on a screen. Now, of course, if we could also do something where we could, I don't know, send home, or, you know, contact this person and we'll send you a little kit, you know, to do this activity with your child, or the video is, there are plenty of videos out there.
Well, like
But don't make them have to go look
That's
for
what
them.
I was just gonna say, could you do the grocery store?
What can you do at what can be at the grocery store?
I was thinking of like those story walks. Like if you set up like even if you set up where there were previous story walks, you know, if you had, and it could be.
I don't know what that means. story walk.
So like down along a trail, and they have boards set up every so often, and it will have like a page from a story, and it will tell the whole story as you go down. There was one down on the waterfront trail, and there's one behind the middle school
And we
as
just,
well.
they just got a grant from National Geographic at Pittston for Randolph School
Nice.
to put one in this spring.
But like there was one somewhere like down on the waterfront where there's waterfront concerts, where there's families spending time, you know, and maybe having like a literacy team get some high school kids to come and read to the little kids at the waterfront concerts or something like that. You know what I mean? Like try and engage more than one generation.
Back to your question about the grocery store, there was this Russian math program, and they didn't introduce any numbers to like year 2 or 3.
Yeah, I've heard
Yeah,
about that.
too.
And so what they would do is say, which one of these is taller, which is longer, which is deeper. And it was comparisons, and that's certainly something, which box of Cheerios is taller, maybe even heavier if there's enough difference. But it's those comparisons that are kind of pre-number skills.
Mhm.
And if I think about it, I might come up with more of the concepts, because I did kind of study this Russian math program for a while. But those are kind of skills, again, that you might not think of doing, but they're easily done. Set the table, a 1-to-1 correspondence. Maybe you don't want them carrying a china, but you know, maybe they have plastic.
Maybe, yeah. Cause these are places where people just go, and maybe there's something we could partner with the grocery store to have, like just a little fun little thing the kids can do instead
Yeah,
of.
like a little scavenger hunt or something like
Instead
that
of
with
begging
pictures.
Or something even
Make a
simple,
cereal.
find the cereal box that has the most red on it. I mean, if we're dealing with colors.
You can also do sensory things too, in terms of sweet, and can you recognize the taste of orange versus something else, you know, or.
Back in the day when you went to restaurants, they used to have like placemats and crayons and all
Yeah.
that. It's probably too expensive for them now to do that.
There are some that
But-
still have them.
Do they?
Can't think of one, but
Well, I don't know, actually, still have them.
What about
I-
our local ones?
We could have, so yeah, have them printed up and have a nice, because they used to have them at Dave's Diner. I don't think they do anymore, but
I can talk to Ashley.
yeah, you could do like a, when's like literacy month or whatever? It must be.
Always.
I know, right?
It
Every
could
day is
happen
literacy.
every time,
It could
every
be any
day.
day. That would be
Well,
cute.
What I appreciate about this is just trying to start planting the seed to think outside the box. I actually took a lot of notes because I think this could be really helpful for me to bring back to people here in the district. Because we do need to think about ways that we connect with families that isn't just like come to our school, because some families aren't ready to do that, or it's not convenient. And I wanted to also we don't routinely talk about, what do we look for when students come to school? We routinely talk about what are the expectations when they leave.
And
And
some
so-
of these expectations when they leave are actually pretty advanced for kindergarten. I mean, to be able to write it, to be able to read sentences, I mean, that's a lot for some 5-year-olds, and
And it has changed over the years, you're
Years.
right, since
It-
like we were in
from-
kindergarten. Yeah.
and even, mine
Yeah.
was even more than yours. But you know, our expectations sometimes for the little ones, I think sometimes set up the frustrations, especially if they're used to having instant gratification with a tablet
Or
or,
just not the same kind of time boundaries.
And then-
Sometimes
yeah,
school, the
exactly.
time boundaries are really hard for kids. A preferred activity, and then we're asking them to do a non-preferred activity, and that alone is like not a pleasant experience for some students, and trying to navigate that is hard for kids and for teachers.
do we think about maybe in terms of motor skills and the physical abilities, doing like discovery tunnel or something like that they have at children's museums?
We do a lot, you'll see in school sometimes like mats and stuff, and they fold them into little tents and crawl through them, and
Climb over.
yeah, and
things
then they have the
and-
playgrounds. I know the Boys and Girls Club tried to do a nature-based playground for a little while, and now they have more playground equipment. Yeah, I mean, there's some of that. There's always an opportunity if there's time for more.
I was gonna say, if you kind of link it with a problem-solving event, you know, almost like a treasure hunt or you know, some other problem that you have to solve to move to the next thing.
Some of our family nights have been like that, which is really fun. They've done a good job with that. I thank you, and I know there wasn't a vote. This was really just like information, inquiry. Our next few meetings are probably we're gonna start getting into things like budget, program of studies for the high school, course sequencing decisions. Eventually, we hope to have a proposal around the MTSS behavior system, strengthening that and getting your feedback and eventually a vote on that. So those are coming up in the next few months, and so it'll be pretty heavy. So this is our one opportunity to like just reset the stage from the beginning and kind of ground ourselves, and then start thinking about like schools are part of a community. How do we make that less of a divide and more
Yeah.
permeable?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, well, that's isn't that one of our strategic
Yes,
goals
it
anyways?
is.
So I feel like
Thank you, Meg.
it's something that we're kind of gonna like across the district, and we'll just evolve into like.
Yeah, it is a major theme of our strategic plan. I'm so proud of you for
Yeah, I was
bringing
gonna
that in.
Am I to understand that the success skills element is going to be then moved up? We're looking at that as part of that strategic plan for the high school,
The success skills.
in terms of behaviors and stuff like that.
Yes, right. We're gonna talk about that in January and then move forward in February. Yeah, it's across the board, not just elementary. Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to make sure we knew?
Actually, I'm gonna ask Terry, I was just wondering if I could get a list of personnel at each school, who the teachers are teaching what.
It's all on our website.
I looked for it and I've just
We'll
been
show you
having-
where it is.
yeah.
It's under Explore. You go, but it's under each school, Explore, and then you can see staff. Yeah, it's public. All right,
Great.
thank you. Have a great night. 4:33, 4:34, no, 4:33.